Hello Flosstube, welcome. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. If it's your first time here, thanks for joining, and if you're returning, thanks so much for coming to visit with me again. I have a lot of stitching this time to show. Not sure how I got so much done. Well, I guess was the 4th of July holiday in here, maybe? I think I had a 3-day weekend. Although I've been doing a lot of projects around the house, which has cut in significantly to my stitchy time, but it is feeling good to get caught up on a lot of projects which I've let go too long. So a lot of odds and end repair work and that kind of stuff. But I did get 3 FFOs and some finishes done, and I'll explain when I get into the finishes why my thumbnail is called Red, White, and Blue. But first, I wanted to thank Robin and Darcy, who were 2 of the winners from my last giveaway, who sent me really pretty thank you cards. And I think I messaged Darcy. Oh, and Darcy sent me this really cute little quilted coaster, like a little mug rug. But I messaged her to see if she actually made this quilt. I've been wanting to do a log cabin like that, where you play with the lights and darks and it creates a different effect than what the log cabin block would traditionally be. And this has inspired me. I have a quilting weekend, Labor Day weekend. Actually, we're on Thursday through Monday this time, so that's what, 5 days? Yeah, 5 days. 4.5, something like that. And I may kit up the log cabin and go ahead and work on this. I have a couple ideas in mind. I don't know if I'm gonna have time before then though. My grandmother, who is 105, or would be next month, is not doing well. So I'm expecting to have some disruptions to my schedule here coming up. All right, I'm gonna dive into the FFOs here. So the first one, I had shown this a while ago. This I had stitched years ago, back in, oh, I thought this one had the date on it. I think I figured it was around 94 maybe, or 93. It might have even been earlier. I made it into a pillow for my mother for Mother's Day or birthday or something. And it had gotten very grubby. It was used on her bed for years. And then she had it on the family room sofa, and yeah, it had just gotten grubby over the years. I mean, it's like 30 years old. Or as one of my employees put it this week, it's from the 1900s. Yeah, someone actually said that. I said, it took me a minute. Like, what did she say? And then it dawned on me what she meant. And I was like, great, we're now referring to the 1900s. Like we would refer to the 1700s or 1800s, or anyway, it's from the 1900s. So it was in a pillow. It had gotten grubby. The velveteen that I had used for the pillow had faded over time, although I did save a piece of it because I think it would make a really nice little pillow back, and it was faded just in spots. So anyway, I wanted to do something to rescue the stitching that I had done, and so I made it into a project pouch. This is actually was a pair of earrings that I got at a craft show. Pretty sure cut with like a glow forger, but the daisies went with the daisies that I used for the border up here. But this project bag was just, the size was driven by the size that this had been cut. And I know this was back when I was young and poor, and I would scrimp and save on every inch of anything that I was stitching on. And a lot of what I used, like this, I'm sure was the packaged, you used to be able to buy them for like 99 cents, the packaged piece, and they were like 12 by 18 maybe. So anyway, that's how I salvaged this. The pattern was called Danish Wreaths, and last time I searched for that, Danish Wreaths, it was on eBay for a couple bucks. So the pattern, I don't think is still published, but you can still find it around. It's got some other really pretty pieces in it. I'm wishing I still had the pattern, but am not finding it unless it's in a box of stuff that I keep thinking I'm going to sell at a yard sale that's in my basement. So I finished that project pouch to FFO that. And then I am leaving. So today's actually Wednesday. I won't release this till Friday night, but tomorrow morning I leave for Stitch, New Jersey, and I needed a small for that. I couldn't decide which I wanted to use for the small. I had two already stitched pieces that I pulled out, and I decided to take the smalls and stitch them into a project bag. You know, smalls are always tricky because everybody's got their own style, their own colors that they like, and you know, they maybe don't have a lot of room for things sitting out and around, and you start to run out of places to put that kind of stuff. I mean, I do even with my own stitching. So I decided to make them into project bags. That way they can get enjoyment out of the stitched piece, but if it's not 100% their cup of tea, at least they'll have a project bag that's useful for them. So this is one that I made. This pattern was from October House, I think. And I don't remember it on the cover. It has different words, but then inside it was also charted to say a summer day. And I don't remember what the cover originally said. But this is one that I picked it up on a freebie table, and I'll hold it up close. This butterfly is all 1/1, which was a beast to do on, I think it's 32 count. So it's not too small, but 1/1 on linen is tricky anyway. And then that tiny, but I stitched this one. I picked the pattern up on a freebie table, loved it. I didn't use all the called for. I pulled from stash when I stitched this. I do remember it is on Grace Notes Blueberry Milkshake, although I have tried buying Blueberry Milkshake since then, and it has been greener than what this is. But that's what the fabric was, I'm pretty sure. And so I finished it with the daisies. Seemed to go with the summery theme and these daisies. I tried finding something with this peachy pink in my fabric stash, but didn't really have anything. I did line it with a peach, but the blue piece wasn't looking good against anything that I had in peach, so I settled on the daisies. And this is a charm that I made. I have a video. It's not one of my first videos, but it's probably a couple years ago now. I did a video on how to make these charms like this. But so that was one that I made. I don't think this is the one I'm going to take, and I'll explain why. I FFO'd a second one. I had done this Be Your Own Kind of Beautiful, which I think was Lizzie Kate. And it was also a pattern I had picked up on a freebie table. And I thought I was going to make something for my niece with it. And then I was going to do like a journal thing. And this is a different charm that's made up that I hung one up here. I decided to take this one to Stitch, New Jersey, because this fabric was an exclusive that Jim from Needleworks by Jim had dyed for Stitch, New Jersey last year. It's a Lugana. I think he only had Lugana. It's 32 count Lugana. I originally thought I was going to stitch like a Mira or something on it. It's really pretty rainbow pastels, but I don't enjoy stitching on over-dyed Lugana for some reason. I think maybe it shrinks. I'm not sure. But that was the stitching. I showed that when I finished the stitching piece, but this is it all FFO'd. So somebody this weekend will be getting a project bag if they pick my bag, and it's lined kind of bright. I got a gift bag that's really bright colors, so that hopefully if it's somebody who doesn't like bright colors, they won't be drawn to the gift bag, because this is definitely colorful. But hopefully somebody will like that. So those were my FFOs, and now I've got a couple finishes. So Before I get to my finishes, I'll show you what got me started on my theme of red, white, and blue. It was 4th of July weekend, and I was working on my Silver Creek sampler, American Dream. This is the pattern. And I am stitching it on 32 count cream fabric. And I got a little girl, I had part of the legs done. So I've done the dress and the arms, although there's some pieces of the arms still missing, and the flag pole. The flag was in. I haven't done some of this dark blue because it's the same blue as this, and there's a lot of words that have to go up here, and I'm not sure the skein that I have is going to be enough. So I want to actually put the words in, and if I run out, I can always do this in a different navy. So that's why the flag doesn't have the blue yet. Oh, and I did the little bird on the flagpole too. But I worked on this. And then I had another patriotic piece that I wanted to stitch on, and after I finished that, and I'll show it in a minute here because I actually finished it, then I was like, okay, what do I want to work on next? And I wanted to pull out some things I hadn't touched in a while, and I needed to work on my modern folk embroidery, put a bird on it for the stitch along, which I am woefully behind on. And as I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, I could work on this, I could work on that. And I realized that a lot of what I was picking out was red, Quaker kind of things, or blue. So I decided just to go with red, white, and blue, and that's all I stitched for the last 2 weeks. I didn't stitch anything that wasn't red, white, and blue. Well, okay, the flagpole and the bird weren't red, white, or blue, but really all of her dress was, and it was more like the theme that I was thinking. The other piece that I was stitching that was patriotic, that started me down the red and blue rabbit hole, and actually was a really good way for me to touch a couple things that I hadn't touched in a while. But I had the Freebie pattern. This was the June Freebie. The July Freebie from Primrose Cottage has some strawberries. I think it says Hello Summer. No, it's cherries and says Hello Summer. I tried printing it out, but it didn't print, so I don't know what I did. I'm not sure I'm going to stitch it. But this one I loved. And it calls for Valentine. I used some overdyes and some DMC. I'll show what I used. But what I would like to do, I've got 2 other Primrose patterns, which I'm gonna do now, I'm pretty sure, in the same color and same fabric that I used for this. It would be a really cute trio. So that is my plan. And these other 2 patterns are red, white, and blue quilt. And this one is patriotic Quaker. So these won't get stitched this year because I'm probably done my patriotic stitching. Although the Silver Creek sampler, I keep saying I'm going to get it out Labor Day weekend, but I'm away quilting. I won't be doing any cross stitch that weekend, or very little anyway. So I don't know, maybe Veterans Day I'll get it out. But I finished the Freebie. So this is the Freebie. I did use the blue as an overdyed, and then this is just white and 321 I used for the red. I pulled out a red licorice, and it wasn't very variegated, and when I held it up to 321 it looked just like it, and I thought, all right, I'm gonna save the licorice for some time. I have a pattern that's actually calling for that, and I'll just use 321 for this. And this is on 20 count Aida. It is Color and Cotton, yes, Color and Cotton Boardwalk, which is a really interesting putty color. But I was in the mood to do some Aida stitching, The only thing I won't like is if I finish this as a round pillow, Ada doesn't, it doesn't draw up into the circle as neatly and evenly as linen. I've learned that doing some of the round, like pincushion kind of things flat on the bottom, and they just don't, it just doesn't have as much give, so it doesn't gather as nicely to gather it into a circle shape. But how cute is that for a freebie? And it only took me a couple evenings of stitching. I think I actually did it on a weekend day where I stitched a lot, but it would equate to what for me would normally be a couple evenings of stitching. So I've got plenty of this fabric left. I'm going to, I probably won't FFO this year. I'm just gonna put it in a project bag with those other 2 patterns and the 3 flosses. That's all you use, is red, white, and blue on this. And I'll stitch these up next year. But now I'm wondering what I did with the blue. I'm thinking I thought it was something else and I put it away, so I'm gonna have to dig it back out. I've got 2 more finishes. I thought I had just 2, but I've got 3 finishes. So I've been working on, this is an old finish. This isn't the one I just did, but I've been working on a lot of these small Primrose Cottage pillows. I have summer started and I have the winter pattern, but I haven't started it. This one, the Valentine's Day. Oh, that's the pattern. That is the one I finished. I already finished spring. That was a while back. I'm doing these 1/1 on 28 count Lugana. And the Valentine's Day Quaker I was stitching it in red. And so when I started thinking, what do I have that's red, white, and blue that I can pull out? I remembered that I had this and that it was not done and it was in red, and I finished it. So here's my finished red. I think it is in Belsois Tulip. But let's see if I can hold it up closer. But that's it, all done. I love these. But these are other ones that I'm probably not going to FFO until I get the 4 of them done. But now I've got 2 done. A 3rd one started, and winter. I debated getting winter out to stitch because it was blue, but that seemed to be stretching it a bit on the red, white, and blue. All right, my next finish was Luminous Fiber Arts, a Stitcher's Quaker. And this was the pattern. Quick stitch, just a few evenings altogether, like maybe 3, because you don't have any color changes. The hardest part, I'm stitching it on 32 count white linen, and you have to be very careful with how you start and end your threads because any little thread tail will show through the white linen. I had previously done the Luminous Fiber Arts Stitcher, and I painted this frame. It's just red spray paint, and so I wanted to finish the this other piece on the same white linen, and I've got a square frame that I'm gonna spray paint the same red so that I would have a companion piece. Sorry, I'm peeking around to see if it's even on screen. So I got it done, and here it is up closer. It's a fun stitch. This one I stitched with Silks for You PR 126. I like doing single color pieces with silks. you know, if it's a pattern that's got 20 colors, it's expensive to buy 20 silks, but this is one little skein of silk does this whole piece. So that's what that one is stitched with. I actually have a hank of the PR 126, and I steal from it when I want red. But it has kind of the same mid-tone as the Belle Soie Tulip, but it's got this really bright red, whereas the Belle Soie Tulip that I used on this has more of a dark, see, yeah, it's even reading on camera as darker. It's more of a deep, kind of a bruised berry color, but. So I got that finished. This one I will be FFOing, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So you may see that FFO'd to go with its companion piece very soon here. All right, then I have 2 modern folk embroideries that I worked on. These are not finishes. The put a bird on it. This is the Sal that EJ from Sunshine Stitchers is hosting. There are a ton of people doing this one. If you follow or check out Sunshine Stitchers on Facebook, you'll see tons of people with their pictures posted there. I am very far behind. They started this last December. I should be 2/3 done. So somewhere down here. And I am not. And I had to really, because I was enjoying stitching on it, and then I was trying to think, why am I not picking this up? You know, every now and then I have a project that I just don't pick up, and I have to really think through what is it that's bothering me about this. And I try to do that so I can learn from it, so that I don't start yet another project that I don't pick up. But when I was stitching on it, I'm like, this is a fun stitch. Why am I avoiding this one? Because avoiding it is probably the best word for what I've been doing. And I think it's because I was disappointed after I got going on it on my floss selection. So this blue is actually variegated. If, let me find a spot. I know this is one, I'm just not sure it's going to show up on camera. It has some light and dark here, but you can see it reads a tiny bit better in person, but not a lot more. And so I was really disappointed. You can see it's some up in this piece where there's more solid blocking that's stitched. It's not as strong a variegation as what I would really have liked for a single color. And the whole piece is very subdued for me. You can tell I'm not typically so subdued in my stitching. But I knew where I wanted to. I want to hang this in my family room. I wanted it to be this big. So that drove my my thread count choice. And I wanted it to be in sort of a slate blue, but I'm disappointed with how flat it's looking. So the reason is there's some big spots is the pattern has the alphabet scattered through there, and I'm holding off on stitching those. I'm going to stitch the alphabets and letters last because I may actually pick a different blue to do those. I have a blue that I would like, but it's darker, and I don't want the alphabet to be what catches your eye. I just want it to be different than the Quaker motifs and the birds. So that's what's been happening with this. But since I stitched on it, and I was like, no, I really like stitching this one. It's a fun stitch. So hopefully I'm not going to avoid it now, and I'll get caught up here. I did stitch this motif, this big one here, and then I started this. So kind of this corner over is what I worked on. There was a tiny bit of this that was started, but not a lot. So I did get a nice chunk done. I just need to get a lot more nice chunks done to get caught up. And I think they're already talking about what are they going to do as a stitch along after this. So last year they stitched Rosewood Manor, a dozen Quakers. The stitch along was called Bake Me a Dozen. It's a Quaker piece, and then it's got all these little Quakers in it that are 1/1. So it's a smaller piece than this size-wise, but it was just as much stitching. I didn't start that until July, and I finished in November. So I know I can get caught up on this. I just need to stop avoiding stitching on it. So you'll be seeing this one again as I catch up. I didn't work on, well, I'm supposed to only have one focus piece, the Toledo to Toledo, but I sort of have the second focus piece going with the Cornwall Cottage from Rosewood Manor. I didn't pick those up these 2 weeks. I decided I needed a break from them, and they didn't fit in my red, white, and blue theme. The Cornwall Cottage does have a lot of red on it. It's got a lot of green too, and I was trying to just stick with things that only had red, white, and blue, because I have enough of those, as you can see. Well, everything I stitched in this last piece is another red on white. So I'll be picking those two up again, although I am not taking either of those to Stitch New Jersey. I've got some other things to take there, but maybe the following weekend I'll get a little bit in on them. And then that put a bird on it is going to have to become a pseudo focus piece, or I'm not going to get it done. All right, the last piece that I stitched on is another modern folk embroidery. It's a winter kaleidoscope. I have wanted to do a long dog or one of these really dense stitched pieces. There's always some motif on the long dogs that I don't like. I looked at Pandemic, I debated that. I ended up with this. I bought this at the attic when I was there last year, and it is a beautiful piece. It repeats a lot. Like, I'm working on this very top band up there, and you'll see that it actually just keeps repeating. Which can make it a little mindless, but can also make it a little boring. And that same band goes all the way around. I think my lesson from this is when looking at a piece like this, and I have another one where I made the same mistake. It was the Mary Poppins piece. I can't think of the designer's name, but I started on the border, which is really intense, like this, and thought, I'm never going to get this thing finished. And I had also already started this one, but I think my lesson is start in the middle, because if you worked out to here and you got bored with this, you know, as long as you got one of the squares done when you quit working, you would have a nice stitched piece and you could just say, I'm done with this. But if you start on the outside edge, you're sort of stuck getting the whole thing done, which could be a good thing or not. But so here's my piece. And I had this corner done over to about right here. So I've pretty well doubled what I had. Is the light showing through that? No, you can see it okay. I'll hold it up closer. This one is stitched with Splendor silk, and I'm wishing I had not done silk with this, because it would use 40 skeins of DMC. So it's going to take like 20 of the bobbins of the Splendor silk. So it's going to cost a fortune to stitch this in silk. because it is so dense. And it will be this wide. So this is about the halfway mark. I'm not quite there. It's like right here. So it's gonna be a big one. This is gonna be a short video tonight because I don't have any haul. I've been behaving myself. I did have one quilt thing that I was gonna show. So I mentioned last time that there was one other specialty roller that I loved, and a few videos ago I said that I would share my first quilt, which was a disaster. So had I had this specialty roller back when I did my first quilt, sorry, I'm just looking for something to hold this up against. Had I had this roller, my first quilt wouldn't have been quite the disaster. But the specialty roller is called the Wing Clipper. This is Wing Clipper 2. There's some of the Deb Tucker Studio 180 design rollers, and Wing Clipper 2 finishes in even widths, and Wing Clipper 1, it's in the half, you know, it's 2.5 inches, 3.5 inches, and this is the 3/4. So the way the wing clippers work, they're used for flying geese, and flying geese is this red and white right here is flying geese. And what the wing clipper allows you to do is make the oversized flying geese and then trim down, and then you've got perfect geese. The points are where you need them to be with the right 1/4 inch margin. Flying geese are hard to make. You've got like mad respect for me if you can make flying geese without some sort of specialty roller. This one I found I like the best, and you don't have to have it a lot oversized, your flying geese piece. This just allows you to trim off those edges just enough so that you end up with the perfect block. And so those I have pulled out for multiple quilts. But my first quilt, so a little bit back on my quilting journey, because I haven't been quilting, I've been cross stitching for 45 years, back since the 1900s. I was not quilting in the 1900s. So I originally started quilting when I moved into this house, and I have hardwood floors, and I don't like the echoey sound. So I knew I needed more soft surfaces to absorb the sound, and I wanted a quilt for the living room wall. And I made a stack and slash, super simple, no pattern required kind of quilt. And then the bug hit. After I did that, then I was in the quilt shop, and I'm like, oh, I want to make this one. And so I foolishly picked up this pattern, and I forget the name of the pattern. They make little tiny patterns, nibbles. It's a name kind of like that. And I love this pattern, and it's very inspired by the fabrics and things that are in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, which is not modern quilting. There is now some, but it's predominantly not modern. It's very traditional fabrics and patterns, and Lancaster's a big Amish area. So other than the red, which I put in it, it is pretty traditional fabrics, sort of. But I picked this pattern up and really wanted to do this, not realizing that this was not a beginner quilt pattern. With all these flying geese, I mean, the whole thing is full of flying geese. So I can show you. See, I was looking at it last night. It wasn't as bad as what I was remembering. Oh, here's one that's bad. So because my block wasn't quite right, this one right here, that, working backwards, that seam right there. See how the seam is way over here and the flying geese, the triangle is like a 1/4 inch away. The points aren't meeting up. Same thing up here. So there's a lot of that happening in here. And if I had known anything about quilting, this was not one to start with. So I haven't had this one out for a long time because it got to where as I quilted more and more and learned more, and my 1/4 inch seam got better, and you know, all the things as I picked up all the tips and tricks, and I don't want to say perfected it because I'm far from a perfect quilter. I don't even really aim to be, but this always looks like a disaster to me, and so I haven't had it out in a really long time. It hung on the wall in my dining room for a few years. I don't like the way I quilted it either, so I talked like on this one up here about echoing, but I learned to echo so that it was going to be the width or the length of the quilt, or this is on a diagonal, but it's edge to edge. This, I had no idea what I was doing, and you'll see that I echoed, I mean, I machine stitched. So like if we look at this, I went inside, so there's a box. I did the same thing on these triangles, and that was how I quilted this. I stitched inside each box and inside each rectangle, so there's all these there's a million stops and starts on this thing. Every little piece has a stop and start on it. It doesn't get washed, so it's not like it's gonna come out. And then I did do some ruler quilting on the edge here, that wavy line up in the border. That's done with a ruler. I had maybe taken a class on ruler quilting by then. It also was a period where when I first started quilting, I would use something that matched, but kind of the cheapest fabric I could find for the back. Now I like my backs to look almost, I want my backs to be fun too. And I'm often for backs piecing together leftovers from the quilt top, because by the time I'm done with the top, like with that one, I don't want to work with that fabric anymore. And so I didn't do it on that quilt because those are jelly rolls. But if I were using fat quarters or something and I had leftover pieces, I will either piece together the whole back, or I'll piece together a panel that I'll put down the middle of the back, or things like that. But this was when I was first quilting, and so I just went with nondescript and cheap. This one also has a rod pocket on it, and I stopped doing pockets on them because I prefer to just hang them with the curtain rod clips that are just little clips. And I found that they don't damage the quilt if I have enough of them across. It supports the weight. It doesn't leave any kind of mark on the quilt. I don't have to do the rod pocket pocket. I don't have to put that on the back. It's just a simpler, easier method for me to hang quilts, especially like that spot. And there's a spot in my dining room where I rotate the quilts out all the time. The one in the living room I don't ever rotate, and one in my foyer I don't ever rotate, but I have the two spots that get swapped out seasonally, or just like that one, I'm kind of getting tired of looking at it, so it's going to get rotated out here soon. So that was my first quilt. You know, looking at it, I don't think I had any real quilt classes or lessons when I did the piecing, I had taken a ruler class before I did the border. Although, you know, I say that, I have a feeling this was not ruler work. I think this might have been done with a hand quilting stencil, and I traced the line and machine quilted it, but used a stencil for this. Because I am pretty sure I had not taken any classes yet when I made this quilt. I know I didn't take the ruler work class until I had already taken some piecing classes, and I know I had no piecing classes when I did this. Hence why it's something of a disaster, but still fun because it was my first quilt that used traditional blocks. Wasn't just a kind of the stack and slash kind. So wing clipper 2, fantastic ruler for flying geese. You won't end up with that mess like I have on this quilt. And that's my first quilt that I said I would share with everybody so you could, you know, it's a good lesson in we can sometimes be so critical of anything that we create. I see people do it with their cross stitch too. I sometimes do it with my cross stitch. We're so hypercritical when we're working on something because we see the mistake right then. If you set it aside and come back to it, you know, like I was just looking at this now, trying to find, I did know there's things in this that are not done well, but you know, it's hard to find. I mean, for me, and I know it's in there. So is a non-quilter visiting my house gonna ever notice that my flying geese points don't line up right? Probably not. And it's just a lesson not to be so hypercritical of everything, because likely nobody's ever going to notice it except you, and you may not even notice it after you've set it aside and moved on with something else. Yeah. So this is going to be a short one tonight. I've got to get up in the morning to drive to New Jersey, and I need to get this edited down and pushed out to YouTube so that it's ready to go there on Friday, or else you won't be seeing this video this weekend. But I hope everybody's having a good time stitching, and I hope to see some of you at Stitch New Jersey, although I don't know I haven't heard from anybody that they're going. Oh, I take that back. Maureen, I know, will be there. And a few, I do know some people that are going. Viewer-wise, Maureen's the only one I can think of right now who I know is going. So, everybody, happy stitching, and I will talk to you all in 2 weeks. Bye!